The Metroid series is awesome, man. It includes some of my favorite games ever, whether it be in the original 2D series or the 3D Prime games. But like every great gaming series, it had to start somewhere. While most long-running game series often see substantial improvements, increased polish, and a true honing into the series' strength after a couple of games or so, it's particularly interesting looking at the origin of a series where the initial games are just this old. NES games in particular are pretty fascinating because they really represented a turning point from the Atari games, which were groundbreaking for the time but by and large lack much substance or replay value, and the majority of games afterward, in that there's a substantial number of games for the system that largely hold up today, or at the very least offer a substantial, if flawed, gaming experience. And really, the first Metroid game definitely fits the profile for the latter. It's a game that was incredibly unique for the time, offering a long and juicy action exploration experience with atmospheric environments, iconic music, and distinctive power-ups, but it certainly got its lion's share of issues, and it's not exactly a game that I'm itching to come back and play either, although I can definitely admire it in many ways. From my initial few runs, I decided I would play the game the good old-fashioned way, without the help of any online map. Oh yeah, did I forget to mention that? The game doesn't come with an in-game map. So if you were living in the 1980s, you better work on those memorization skills, or else you get to drawing like some cartographer of the New World, because you'll need some way of remembering where the heck you've been. It starts off well enough. You see Samus, hear the fantastic Brinstar music, and then waltz over to the left to nab the Morph Ball, which really is such a unique power-up concept, so props to the devs for thinking that up. However, it doesn't take too much time running and blasting enemies for you to realize that there's some issues here. First of all, you can't crouch, maybe because Samus skipped leg day or whatever, but that means that a bunch of enemies crawling around Samus just can't be conveniently hit. Then you've got this really annoying near-death beeping sound that just goes on and on like a naggy old hag who's also near death herself, and it is quite aggravating. After facing your inevitable demise for the first time, you see the password screen come up, which is a fairly standard way of continuing games back in the day, so I won't hold that against the crusty old game. As you proceed further in the game, you'll see that there are some long vertical passages, some of which will really eat up your sweet time, but that at least gives you some time to farm for health, which, believe me, we will get back to later. I did notice one other small annoyance here, which was that getting stuck in this mud pit of sorts, and that led to another instance of my demise, but I'm sure that won't become a recurring thing, so no biggie. After restarting in Brinstar again, I'd started getting used to some of the enemy patterns, so running around, shooting baddies, and exploring started to become kind of fun. I got my first E-Tank, which is great, because enemies can make short work of you quickly if you're not careful. Then I got to see some jank with one of the creepy crawlies. That was kind of funny. Then there's this door over here I can't unlock because at this point, I have no idea where the missiles are, but that's okay for now. Getting stuck again, that's okay, not a big deal. Farming for health here again is definitely a bit of a pain, and kind of time consuming. There's this floor I can't get through because I don't have the Morph Ball bombs yet, whatever. And finally, I've located the missiles. Plus I've located the next world, Norfair, and getting stuck again. Yeah, that's kind of annoying, not gonna lie. And I can't go any further here because I need more Morph Ball bombs. Well, that sucks. Around this time, I'd stopped keeping track of my deaths because they were happening a lot. Like, I definitely got the idea that maybe I wasn't supposed to be here yet because I was getting my hiney handed to me like a holiday rump roast. Samus just glitches through a wall here. Oh, and I need the high jump boots. And I'm dying again. Yeah, I could use a map or something at this point. I could actually keep going through the game like this, lots of trial and error with figuring out where to go and getting the power-ups I need. But it just gets aggravating with the low health drops and the overlong, mazy level design. So I really don't feel particularly bad about whipping out my massive map for some assistance. Anyways, I'll say that in spite of the issues I've been having up until this point, I can actually see the vision of what they had here, with the vast exploration, the teasing of new areas that take new power-ups to reach, and all that good stuff. So, after trying a few mapless runs, my initial Mapless Run, courtesy of Falcon Zero, was definitely a smoother experience. I was able to nab the missiles pretty quickly to open the red doors. Fun fact, I didn't know it took multiple missiles to open these doors when I was playing this on the Game Boy Advance as a kid, so I remember just turning around at this point, not having any idea what to do. At any rate, then I nabbed the long beam so I can finally shoot further than I can pee. But I gotta say, you can still get messed up really quickly by enemies, mostly because your invincibility frames are pretty pathetic in this game, kinda like in the original Legend of Zelda. Slowdown is also a very regular issue here when multiple enemies are on screen, which is pretty often. Getting stuck is still no fun whatsoever. I'll tell you what though, having this map around is pretty useful because I don't know how else I would have actually known there was a random destructible block right here. Maybe the little flying enemy down there was supposed to be a hint, but there are other instances of that in the game where there are no hidden passages, so I'm just left wondering how a first-time player in the 1980s could have even figured that one out besides hearsay. Another random thing here is that enemies can hit you while you're off-screen, and sometimes there's literally nothing you can do about it. In fact, they hit her so hard, she poots every time! That's right, enemies make Samus IBS act up. That's some next level psychological warfare they're waging on her right here. You want to come to our planet? Fine, you can do that, but we're gonna make poots come at you every time. Samus Aran, more like anus I ran to the bathroom. Anyways, there's actual dead ends in this game, meaning there's quite literally no reason to take multiple paths on the map. In fact, the wicked developers even let me see that dead end from the tube earlier, like they were intentionally trying to seduce me to take a path that deliberately wastes my time. What jerks, man. And again, I don't know how anybody would have known these certain blocks could be busted through, but whatever, I guess. You know, I'm not actually having a bad time here, but boy, the whole game just feels so unrefined and janky. A more accurate title for the game would have been Janktroid. Anyways, after making my way into Norfair, my process going through the game was mostly the same. Follow the map, abuse save and rewind states for when enemies molest me or random stuckness ensues, and witness a bunch of random jank, like machines that randomly don't shoot at me, enemies spazzing out, getting stuck behind statues, seeing 3 missile tanks right next to each other. And did I mention getting stuck? And really, stuckness with a capital S is a genuine integral part of the Janktroid experience. You wouldn't be getting the full experience without it, so you might as well embrace it. Then there's grinding, of course, which takes way too long and isn't even that effective since the enemies you're grinding can still rush your bum. But there's also some neat stuff here, like freezing enemies to reach otherwise unreachable areas, using the screw attack to literally screw enemies, and a bunch of other good stuff too. Come on, come on, come on. Almost got that E-tank. Mother duck. Well, at least this friendly enemy helped me up. That's nice of him. Holy slowdown. Not gonna lie, Norfair's level design is kind of a pain, with long hallways that have dead ends that you have to backtrack through. Seriously, look at the map here. It took me nearly 10 minutes to navigate my way back up from this deep, heinous crack in Norfair. And they could have just put a one-way door or something here to skip all that. Come on, man. Having finally made my way to Ridley Scott's lair, I gotta say, this area is pretty straightforward. I mean, there's still some BS here, like cheap fake floors, and a cruelly seductive missile tempting me from another end of the map. But it's definitely not as twisty and frustrating to navigate as Norfair. Plus, I got this neat-looking double kill, which raised my self-esteem to previously unforeseen heights. But man, after all this build-up, Ridley turns out to be a real punk. And I'm not really complaining if I'm honest, because he gives you like a bajillion missiles anyways. But it's worth mentioning that he's a weakly little weasel. On the way back up, I decided to make a detour to nab a few more items. But I didn't realize that this giant shaft here just has no platforms whatsoever, so I'm pretty sure I came all that way for nothing. But after that unfortunate disappointment, I made my way out of the Ridley Pan and into the North Fire, as they say. Also, I didn't realize this at first, but apparently you're technically supposed to face Kraid before Ridley. When I looked at the map though, and I thought about crossing back and forth between Brinstar and Norfair multiple times, I just said screw attack that, man. That being said, credit to the developers here. You can make your way through Norfair to Brinstar pretty quickly if you know where you're going. And after coming back to the relatively easy Brinstar after all this time, I gotta say, it really feels good ripping into enemies with your upgraded beams and the Ebenezer Scrooge attack. But after another round of very, very long vertical shafts, I finally nabbed myself the Various suit, and sweet Jimmy Johns, you finally take less damage from getting stuck in the doo-doo mud. Hallelujah! I finally found something to confront the mighty enemy of stuckness. And I'm guessing I'd need the ice beam for this part. Alright, whatever, I'll come back to it. Maybe, maybe not. Now I've finally made my way to Kraid's lair, and I gotta say, I absolutely love the music here. There's an awesome remixed version of it by Dracula 9 Anti-Chapel as well, so I would check that out, as it's definitely worth a couple dozen listens. There's this funny little enemy with giant eyeballs here. I kinda like him. I'll call him Jeffrey. But still, the level design is kinda whack here. Like, there's this whole section in the upper right of Kraid that loops over itself with absolutely no pickups or incentive of any time to even go there. So, I didn't. Still, getting to Kraid didn't actually take too much trouble, even if enemies at this point in the game are causing substantial damage. But boy, does Kraid himself put up a fight. And it's actually a pretty fair challenge. I beat him with almost no health left here, so that was a great feeling. But fortunately for me, there was a lovely E-tank in the room just to refill my... Okay, so it's a bit of a pain to get to. No surprises there, honestly. But as I made my way back up, I faced dire situations, like a set of random tempting red blocks that solely exist to trick you into thinking there's a hidden secret, when diabolically, there's absolutely nothing there at all. Then they surround you with Jeffreys. Oh, curse you, Jeffrey. But after all this, I made one last trip through Brinstar again, and fortunately I just so happened to remember that I would need the ice beam for the final section of the game, or else I'd be Scrooged. Now, I do like that you have to lure an enemy here to use as a platform to nab this E-tank, but how would I have known that there was one right here without a guide? I guess I just have to gossip with other kids in the playground or something, maybe in exchange for a Pez dispenser or something else valuable. Different times, I guess. Also, I noticed afterwards that in spite of there being 9-ish energy tanks in the game, you can only obtain a maximum of 6, which is just weird. But after one final massive vertical shaft, I made my way to the final area of the game. We faced all kinds of dangers, fears, and monstrosities to get here. Creepy crawlies, dive-bombing bat things, Jeffreys, annoying sounds, IBS, lag and slowdown, stuckness itself, and all other manner of jank. But we finally arrived at our final destination, Torian. There is genuine tension here in dealing with the eponymous Metroids, who are all too eager to literally suck the life out of you. But if you pace yourself well and only face one at a time, they're not too hard to dispatch. Just don't get impatient or they might suck you. But suddenly, the music takes on a malevolent, foreboding air as you're pelted with laser balls from every direction. And as you proceed further past the electrical barriers, you come face to face with the mastermind of the wicked Metroid scheme. Daddy Jeffrey, Mother Brain. While you dance madly to avoid the omnipresent laser balls and shoot missiles wildly at Mother Brain's tank, the twisted creature begins to pulsate and throb, indicating that she's near death. And just as you think she may have beaten you down with the sheer multitude of her many balls, But it's not over yet. It's the final countdown, and you desperately escape through, of course, a long vertical shaft, listening to some daggone fine music along the way. But this is short work for you at this point, because the game has trained you through sheer repetition to become a master of vertical hallways. And then, you've made it. Mission complete and escape successful. And shock of all shocks, Samus is a female woman. And with the hotness itself revealed, you finally get an explanation as for why all the enemies have been chasing your tail the whole time. Because you are a very fine young lady, and these are some incel creeps. Plus, if you complete the game faster, Samus will take off even more clothing for you, which you could reasonably argue lessens the impact of introducing a strong female protagonist into gaming. But, sometimes you need to bust a few nuts, or eggs, to make an omelet, as they say. So, after a few mapless and Mapped runs, what do I think of Metroid? Well, in spite of the substantial amount of questionable design choices, stuckness, and general jankiness, I actually didn't have a bad time playing through it, with a map in hand at least. And while I definitely prefer the later games in the series, including its masterful remake Metroid Zero Mission, which I am planning on reviewing soon, I could actually see myself coming back to it from time to time, because there's a good game here buried inside a bunch of the issues, and as long as you kinda know the best way to play it, you can actually have a good time with it. Unlike games like Super Mario Bros. Or the Mega Man games, or even a Konami-coded Contra, Metroid just hasn't aged the best, and it's not a game that's easy to pick up and play. In fact, a few years ago, I would have said that it's not a very good game, and given the amount of time I've dedicated here to discussing its flaws, that's not inherently a wrong view, but I've come to deeply appreciate the template it laid down with its action exploration gameplay, and I genuinely enjoy its unique upgrades, environmental atmosphere, and banger tunes. And it especially helps that now that we see where the template is gone, and we've seen how much the sequels have accomplished, that we can look back and say, hey, this really started something grand. So, while Metroid for the NES still isn't a game that I love, it has gained my respect, and that is something that I'm happy about. Thanks for watching, and until the next mission, I'll see you guys later.